Thank you, Al. There are my people. Hi. Welcome. Good morning. So let's start with our focus statement this morning, shall we? With all the V's, vim, vigor, vivaciousness, velocity, and every other V available. All right, here we go. We embolden people to live their highest potential through the transformative power of love. Yes, thank you. I'm feeling good now. All right. So this year we are working with a theme here at Centers for Spiritual Living Worldwide. We are working with a theme of spirituality in action based on Dr. James Forbes's prosperity justice principles, which you will find in your Connect magazine on page 18. Everybody have their Connect magazine? Yes? All right, fabulous. All right, if you did not get one, there will be some more available in the lobby and in the bookstore immediately following service. But we are working with those spiritual justice principles, and so the spiritual justice principle for this month is ensuring stewardship of the planet, or ensuring stewardship of the earth. In there you'll see it says ensuring stewardship of creation. That's all the same thing, right? Because there's only one. And today, the talk title that I chose is At the Edge of the Roof. And we'll get to that in a minute. So what I want to begin sharing with you is, if we're talking about ensuring stewardship of the earth, ensuring stewardship of the planet, we have to know what's going on, don't we? We have to be paying attention. We have to be awake and aware and paying attention as to what's going on. This week, we saw Hurricane Dorian pretty much destroy the Bahamas. Yes, we saw this. That Hurricane Dorian, this massive, massive storm, stalled over the Bahamas at a Category 5 hurricane. So that means sustained winds over 159 miles an hour, and just stalled over the Bahamas for about a day, lashing the Bahamas with 159 plus mile an hour winds consistently. So the current death toll that we know of is right around 43 or so, but we also know that this is grossly underestimated because of the massive destruction that's happened in the Bahamas, that they have not been able to get to all of the places and recover all of the folks. So they anticipate hundreds, if not thousands, but the current number is 43 the last time I saw. Then this same massive hurricane moved off onto the shore of North Carolina and the Outer Banks of North Carolina as a Category 1, 2. And last night it was lashing at Nova Scotia, Halifax, Nova Scotia, at a Category 2, which is around 100 plus miles an hour. It was lashing Nova Scotia, though it was not considered a hurricane any longer because it didn't have a warm center or a warm core. So they no longer called it a hurricane, but for all intents and purposes, it's still a hurricane, right? And no, it was never, ever, ever going to approach Alabama, okay? It was not. Okay? Never going to approach Alabama. However, we see this huge, massive energy storm because of the Earth's oceans warming up. And right now there is a typhoon off the coast of Japan doing similar. It's not quite as strong, but it is the fifth hurricane, or typhoon actually, because it's Pacific, fifth typhoon in the North Pacific this year so far. And then last month, I don't know if you saw it or not, but a glacier the size of the lower part of Manhattan, of lower Manhattan, the glacier the size of the lower half of Manhattan, broke off of, it calved itself, in Greenland. And so I know that Reverend Sonia will be excited about iceberg season in a couple of years in St. John's, but it's really quite amazing when you think that much ice cleaved in less than 1 hour. Less than 1 hour. So the scientists, yes, scientists, facts, the scientists are telling us that we have entered into the 6th extinction phase. That there have been 5 major extinction phases throughout the 4 billion year history of the planet. There have been 5 extinction phases, and we have now entered into the 6th. And what makes the 6th extinction phase different from all the other 5? Us. Us. You and me. People who've been on the planet for the past 100 years, 200 years, but especially the past 100 years. Us. What this is since the Industrial Revolution. What this is called anthropogenic, meaning it's man-made. It's Genesis, it's created by man, by humankind. That's what makes this thing so different than what has been. It's not a meteor coming to the earth, or a comet or a meteor coming to the earth and, hitting the ocean, and then all the dinosaurs go bye-bye, right? So it's very different in its nature. So just another little statistic for you. Should the Earth average temperature raise by 6 degrees Celsius, and for those of you who don't understand Celsius, should the Earth's temperature raise by 10.8 degrees Fahrenheit, 95% of life on the planet will go extinct, including you and me. Whoa! So when you think of 10 degrees, we have 30-degree shifts right here in Riverside on a daily basis, right? Last night it was, and even this morning, it was nice and cool. It's 61 degrees, yum, delicious, right? And today's high is supposed to be right around 90, so there you see a 30-degree shift just in the day, right? So putting it in perspective, 10 degrees, or 10.8 degrees, isn't really that much on average when you think about it, right? So this quote here at the edge of the roof comes from our dear beloved Rumi. So Rumi says, "Sit, be still, listen, you're drunk, and we are on the edge of the roof." Right? So let's say that again. Sit, be still, and listen, because you're drunk and we are at the edge of the roof. Right? So the way things have been evolving over the past 100 years is when we look at it from a systems approach, the way it's been evolving is we have been moving into what's called a postmodern era where there's been a high sense of individualism. There's been a hyper-individualism where we are more concerned, possibly, especially in the 80s, we are more concerned possibly for ourselves than others, right? Where we become more concerned about, we had those movies, Greed is Good, right? About getting ahead, about consuming, about buying, about keeping up with the Joneses, if you will, right? So there has been this focus, there's been this drive to the next best thing, the greatest thing, and idea that competition is good, and competition is good, because some of what, in a healthy, what's called an orange or postmodern level, in a healthy situation, what that does is that drives innovation. So we would not have gotten to the moon. We would not be flying in airplanes. We would not have a lot of the modern conveniences that we have if there wasn't some kind of innovation, if there wasn't a problem to solve and the creativity with which to solve it. But where we are in our state of evolution, if you will, is we get to begin to think about how to use these innovations for the common good. Because what has happened with the hyper-individualism, the hyper-nationalism that we're seeing, what is happening with that is we are drunk. We're intoxicated. We've gotten to the point where we're now sitting on the edge of the roof and we're teetering. Right? Does that make sense? It's not happy news. Sorry. Bummer. Downer on a Sunday. Whatever. I came for church. I want to be inspired. And I don't want you to tell me that we're all going to die. I don't want to tell you that either. So I'm not. So, let's turn directions, right? So, if we're at this point, part of what has happened is we are no longer in our right mind. We're no longer in our right mind. Does that make sense? How does that make sense? We're no longer in our right mind. It's not just that we're cray-cray. Okay? We're no longer in our right mind because we have shifted our access point, we have shifted our focal point to the left brain, to the rational, to that which serves, to that which solves problems, to that which expresses through language. And we have gotten out of our right mind, our right brain, which is the intuitive piece, which is the deep listening piece. Albert Einstein said that the intuitive mind is the sacred gift, and the rational mind is the faithful servant. And we have created a society that honors the servant and discards the gift. Such a brilliant thinker, right? Ernest Holmes. Yeah. Not Ernest Holmes. Well, him too, but in this case, Albert Einstein, right? Such a brilliant thinker. So the opportunity then is to get back into our right mind. To get back into that. Because what Ernest Holmes does say about evolution and the evolutionary process, which is what we're talking about here really, is the evolution of the planet, is the evolution of consciousness. What Ernest Holmes does say is that when humans showed up on Earth, then it was at that point that we became self-aware, that we have an awareness of self, that there is that within us that says, I am Jeffrey, you are Anita, right? There is that piece of us that is self-aware, that can examine ourselves, can examine our life, can examine things, can problem solve. Once we got to that point, then evolution itself was no longer compulsory. Meaning that it didn't just happen. It wasn't just forced upon us. That once we became self-aware, evolution was no longer compulsory. It's on page 72 of your Science of Mind magazine, or Science of Mind textbook, not the magazine, textbook, that it was no longer compulsory. So the moment that we have free choice, the moment that we have free will, guess what? We also have responsibility, right? So the moment we have that free choice and free will, we also have then the responsibility. So how we continue to evolve from this point on is determined by our choices, is determined by what we think, what we believe, how we act, how we get involved. We have how much responsibility for our lives? 100%, right? And part of the intuitive mind, with the intuitive mind, what comes with that comes the altruistic mind. It comes with the mind that is cooperative. Because when you have within a certain group, then self-concern helps advance evolution. But when you have two groups or multiple groups interacting with one another, then what advances, what evolves the larger is when folks cooperate, when there's an altruism, when there's a cooperation that's happening. And what happens with that cooperation then is it increases the circle, right? It increases the circle of self-concern. So it then supports the larger. So we're using the altruistic, we're using the cooperative model to then also help support then for the greater good, which is where the rational piece comes in. Because we can use these same technologies that we've developed, we can use the same innovation that we've developed to create new ways of interacting with our planet, new ways of interacting with each other, new ways of interacting with all the creatures and all of life on the planet. We have the technology already to be able to do these things, to get off fossil fuels, to get away from industrialized agriculture. We have the ways, we have the technology already existing. If we ourselves would stop using our Sharpies to rewrite what is really going on. Right? Put your Sharpie down. That's revisionism. It gets us nowhere. It's counterintuitive, it's counterfactual, and it's counter-world society. God's calling. So it's just counter to being productive and moving forward. It's counter-evolutionary. Right? It's going backwards. It's trying to go back in time. And that's not the way evolution happens. Evolution is forever moving forward, forever evolving, right? And so it is always evolution is then creating more complex structures, more complexity in our lives. And then the way we get to navigate that is we get to remember that there is this complexity happening, but where do we get to go? We get to go back to the simplicity. It is in the simplicity that allows us to deal with the complexity. It is returning to the simplicity of our lives. It is returning to the basics of our lives that then allow us to expand into and deal with and navigate and explore the greater complexity that we are living with and that we are living in. It allows us to adapt. So what do I mean by simplicity? What we have is the biological evolution is based upon spiritual evolution. And social evolution is also based on spiritual evolution. So by bringing us back to the simplicity, what we are called to do here as people of faith is to come back into and to remember and to value and to place our beliefs and our value system, our morality, back into what we know to be true. And where do we know that we know that we know? Where do we know truth? Right here inside. Because there's a divine wisdom that is happening in, through, and as each one of us. Each one of us is the divine made manifest. Each one of us is that love intelligence, that love wisdom made manifest. We don't need to go seeking outside of ourselves to find something. All the consumerism, all the more, having to buy more, wanting more, needing more, thinking we need more, is really us chasing something that's already right here. We're trying to be satisfied. We're trying to satisfy ourselves, satisfy our lives with the new car, the new house, the new relationship, the new Apple iPhone, right? Well, I know that is, no. Right? And that it feeds this cycle, and we get into the cycle of I need more to be happy. Oh, when I have that, I'll be happy. Oh, when I have that, I'll be happy. When I have that, I'll be happy. And if I don't have those things, I'm not happy. Well, guess what? Those things, those relationships, those people, that stuff is never going to make you happy. Ever. Because if you aren't happy in here, there's no way you're going to be happy out here. So the opportunity then is to realize that what we are truly seeking is not stuff. It is not status. It is not power. It is not money. It is none of these things. What we're truly seeking is conscious union with the divine. And until you understand that you are really seeking conscious union with the divine, and until you understand that actually it's just a breath away, you are never going to find it. Never going to find it. Because it is right here within. It is the love within. It is the love eternal within. It is the who of who you are. And when you come into alignment with that, what else do you need other than that love? When you understand that that love is present right where you are and that you already have it, then all the other stuff comes as it's needed. Seek first the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added to you, right? So seek first the kingdom, the relationship of love, of the divine, and then all things are added. Does that make sense? It's a shift in priorities. So it's a simplifying. So I invite you to think about your life this week. And how can you simplify? How can you simplify your life? Perhaps it is KonMariing everything, right? Getting together and, decluttering, watching the, what's the title? It's the Marie Kondo series on Netflix. Watch that and learn how to fold your clothes better, right? Tidying up, right? And getting rid of stuff. Right? You learn how to fold your clothes. You should see our shirt drawer. I mean, it is amazing. It's fantastic. We got rid of so much before we moved to Riverside. It was amazing. It was like, thank you, and expressing gratitude as we were releasing it out the door and we no longer needed it. Thank you. And then what we kept is like, yeah, I love this. This feels good. Right? So her idea of cluttering isn't just about getting rid of the junk in your life or the stuff in your life or the stuff to dust in your life, right? It's about really beginning to appreciate what it is that you value, what it is that you love, what it is that brings you joy, and keeping those things, and then keeping those things in a nice, neat, orderly way, in a respectful way that's also kind of respecting the item and respecting your own value and respecting the love that you are expressing and sharing, right? So think about tidying up in your physical space, perhaps. Think about tidying up your email inbox. Allison's like, whoa. Right? Think about tidying up your relationships. All right, think about tidying up your friends list on Facebook. Are these friends, either on Facebook or in real life, are the people that you associate with bringing you joy? Are they lifting you up? Are you wanting to spend time with these folks or not? And if not, then bless them on their way. Love you. Blessings. Right? Thank you for all that you've contributed to my life. And allow them to go. Have you looked at your calendar lately? Calendar out of control? Filling your calendar instead of filling it with stuff, filling it with activities that you feel you have to do, right? Rather than activities that you want to do. So how about you cut some of that stuff out, clearing some of that stuff? Because when we make space, we can get really clear when we make space in our lives, make space in our time, make space in our calendar, make space in our physical space, make space in our psychic space, our internal space. Because when we're able to make space, we're able to then focus our attention and be present with what is and simply allow what is. And to then be able to commune with the one, commune with the divine. And allow ourselves to be breathed like we practiced last week. And allow ourselves to be lived into a greater, fuller expression. And when we get really quiet, then we can actually hear the wisdom. That's why Rumi's quote is so wonderful. Sit, be still, and listen. So sit, be still, and listen. There's that wisdom within you that will guide you if you would just shut up and listen to it. Right? If I would just shut up, I could hear Spirit speaking to me. Right? If I weren't distracting myself and multitasking all over here and all over here, not giving my full presence to anything, then I'm really not giving my presence to anything, and I'm not being fully present. Right? We were talking about it this morning at the morning table, how multitasking is like the necessary tool. Like if you're applying for a job, you better be able to say that you can multitask, otherwise you're not going to get the job. That's somehow now the definition of what it means to be successful. And what we were also sharing then is that then we're not really, we may be being successful on this external outside appearance thing, but we're not being successful in here because we're not being fully present with ourselves or with each other, right? If Ed and I are sitting at dinner and I'm texting and he's texting, we're trying to have a conversation, and then my sister calls and, it's like, right? And then the dog's trying to, get things from the table, Here's a French fry, be quiet, right? Then there's all this multitasking going on, and he and I aren't being present with one another. And we're not being present with our food, right? We're not being present with any of it. It's just kind of having this experience of being in the same physical space together, but not really being present with one another or with what we're doing, right? So we have the opportunity to use our cooperation. We have the opportunity to use our altruism because that helps build that compassion. We have the opportunity to get back into our right mind and live more simply, perhaps. And in so doing, that opens us up and makes us more available to have a different consciousness around what we are facing in this period of the life of our planet, to have a different consciousness, to be able to approach things differently, to be able to make the shift, to be able to make the change, to be able to take responsibility and come up with whole new ways that we work cooperatively for the good of the whole. And that's what we're called to do. Would you agree? Yeah. So, I want to leave you with this. This is an actual picture of a glacier in Iceland. It is no longer considered a glacier. It's now considered dead ice, what they call dead ice. And there is a plaque that was put at the glacier commemorating the death of this glacier in Iceland. And here's what the plaque says. Ok is the first Icelandic glacier to lose its status as a glacier. In the next 200 years, all our main glaciers are expected to follow the same path. This monument is to acknowledge that we know what is happening and what needs to be done. That we know what is happening and what needs to be done. And only you will know if we did it. So what are you going to do? I invited you to think about this month, right? We invited you to begin to explore the ideas of what you are willing to do, what you can do, both in consciousness and in the physical realm, because it is about spirituality in action, what you can do in consciousness and in the spiritual realm to ensure the stewardship of our planet. So I invite you to continue to contemplate this month, and we'll invite more discussion in a couple weeks as we talk about healing our planet. Good? All right. And so it is. So I invite all of our practitioners and our core council members to please stand and surround the sanctuary as we move into prayer. And so I invite you to look around the sanctuary and recognize that all of these beloveds are in prayer for you on a daily basis, in prayer for this community on a daily basis. And any prayer requests that you send to us via the website, via the email, or via the envelopes in the back of the pews are kept in prayer for throughout the entire week, throughout the month. So please know that that is also happening on your behalf. And so let's come together in consciousness. I recognize right here and right now that there is only one life, one infinite eternal beingness that brought forth all of creation, all of life. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with the divine. The Word was the divine, and that which the divine did not make was never ever created. Therefore, I know that all of life is the divine made manifest. That the glaciers, that the earth itself, that the movement of water, that the movement of air, the movement of human beings upon this planet, that all of it is in accordance with divine order, divine law, divine right action. Because it is from the one as the one, and it is the one expressing and knowing itself in greater and more magnificent ways. It is the self-aware universe made aware of itself through its awareness and consciousness of the creation that it has created. And so I know that I am one with that one. I am one with the divine. It is the who of who I am. My life is the divine made manifest. That right where I am, the presence and the power of the one life is. It is love, intelligence. It is wisdom. It is ever, always expanding and evolving. For that which is involved evolves. And as I know that this is true of me, I know that this is true of everyone present here this day. I know that this is true of our community, Riverside Center for Spiritual Living. And I know that each one of us goes within and communes with the one, is in conscious union with the one, and surrenders, allowing ourselves to be used by the one life. And so I know that there is a divine wisdom within each one of us that is bubbling forth, that is bursting from within out into the greater expansion of awareness, expansion of consciousness out into the world itself. And it is the love intelligence that is behind this, that is expressing this. And it is this love intelligence that is making itself known through the creative hearts and the creative minds of each individual, bringing forth a conscious shift, a conscious change in our planetary system, in our global ecosystem. I recognize that each one of us are siblings with all of creation and all of life, that we are inseparable from it, that we are one with all of it. Therefore, that which we do outside, we do inside, we do to ourselves as well. And so I know that there's a shift in consciousness, that every action we take, every thought that we think comes from a deep place of unconditional love. And it is this love that heals, it is this love that transforms. For it is the transformative power of love itself that we call forth now, that we manifest now. And so I simply give thanks for it. I give thanks for the transformation. I give thanks for the evolution. I give thanks for the involution. I give thanks for the love, intelligence present, knowing that truly it is all good. And I give thanks for our conscious awareness of it here and now. I simply release this word into the law, knowing that it is already done, knowing that the healing has already taken place because the truth has been revealed. And I simply allow it to be so. And so it is.